The river was quiet, too quiet. Its surface shivered only when flies touched it. No birds sang, no breath of wind stirred the reeds. Then, the water split open. A jaw, wide enough to swallow a man whole, teeth like daggers, each one glistening with slime, each one built to tear flesh from bone. The attack was instant. No warning. One moment, a figure crouched at the edge, scooping water. The next, he was gone. Dragged under, the river exploded in a storm of thrashing limbs. Muddy water turned crimson. A muffled scream gurgled through the foam, cut short by the crunch of bone. The beast rolled, its body a living wall of muscle and scale. Arms flailed, striking uselessly. A hand broke the surface, fingers clawing for air. Then teeth clamped down. The hand vanished. Blood bubbled to the top in thick, black-red clouds. A severed leg floated free for a moment before being dragged back under by the monster's tail. The sound was obscene, bones snapping like branches, tendons tearing in wet strands. Every twist of the crocodile's body shredded the man further, ripping him into pieces. The water frothed with meat. The swamp feasted. This was not rare. This was not chance. This was daily life. The crocodiles ruled every stretch of river. They grew longer than trees, heavier than boulders. Their jaws could crush a skull like dried grass. Their hunger had no end. And humans? Frail, bare-skinned, soft meat walking too close to the water. Every drink was a risk. Every crossing, a gamble. Every sound of splashing could be the last breath you ever took. The survivors didn't bury bodies here. There were no bodies. The river ate everything. What the beast didn't chew to pulp, the fish devoured. The only grave was water. The only marker was blood foam drifting on the surface. Yet still they returned, because the river meant life. Water to drink, fish to eat, pathways to follow. To step near it was suicide. To stay away from it was starvation. There was no choice. And so the first war began. Not between clans, not between men, but between flesh and water, between spear and tooth, between bone and bone-crushing jaws. The question was never who was brave. The question was only who would be eaten tonight. This was the beginning, the first dawn, where blood ran thicker than the river, where survival meant staring into the jaws of monsters and daring to strike back. Subscribe, because this will take you back to those old, terrifying days when our ancestors used to survive these monsters. The swamp swallowed sound, no echoes, no birds, no air moving through the reeds. Only the stench, thick mud, rotting meat, stagnant blood, and the shadows drifting just beneath the surface. A ripple, small, barely there, then another. The hunters froze, their legs sunk knee-deep in the sucking mud, spears gripped in trembling hands. They knew what the ripples meant. The surface broke. Two eyes surfaced amber, slit, ancient, unblinking. And then, the swamp exploded. The beast came up fast, jaws wide, the sound of snapping wood as its teeth crashed together. A spear blocked the bite, shattered instantly. The man behind it screamed as half his arm vanished in a single snap. Bone crunched, torn free at the shoulder. Blood sprayed across the reeds in a hot mist. The crocodile rolled. Its tail lashed sideways, hammering another hunter into a tree. His skull cracked against bark, splitting open like a gourd. He slid down, twitching once, then stilled. The swamp boiled red. The monster surged forward, jaws gaping, clamping down on a leg. The sound, wet, sharp, obscene, filled the night as the limb tore free. The man collapsed into the mud, screaming, dragging himself forward with both hands. The water pulled him back. Another hunter leapt onto the beast's back, driving his stone blade into its neck. The blade sank only inches before snapping against armor. The crocodile surged upward, flinging him into the air. He hit the water headfirst, his skull bursting with a dull crack beneath the surface. The leader charged, his weapon a mammoth rib sharpened to a brutal point. He slammed it into the beast's eye. The scream that came was not human. A guttural roar, half hiss, half thunder. Blood poured black from the socket, coating the water in oily streaks. The crocodile thrashed, throwing its body into the reeds, snapping jaws at anything that moved. One hunter tried to run. The tail whipped across his spine. The crack was sharp as lightning. His body folded in half before dropping lifeless into the muck. The leader's spear held. The eye burst. The beast convulsed, thrashing once, twice, then sank beneath the surface with a hiss of bubbles. The swamp went silent again. Only bodies remained, broken, dismembered. The water still churning with pieces of flesh, drifting like rotten fruit. The survivors stood trembling, their chests heaving, their faces splattered with blood, not their own. Victory was only measured in who remained breathing, nothing more, but the swamp was never empty. One shadow gone meant another waiting. Every river, every pool, every silence could erupt again. This was not hunting. This was not living. This was war. And the crocodiles were winning. The river looked still, but stillness was a lie. Beneath the surface, teeth waited, rows upon rows, knives that had carved flesh for millions of years, knives that never dulled. A hunter waded in. The water reached his thighs. Each step slow, cautious, mud sucking at his legs like hands dragging him down. The surface rippled, nothing more. Then impact. The water detonated around him as jaws closed over his waist. The sound wet, cracking, obscene. Half his body vanished in a single bite. His scream rose in a bubbling shriek as blood poured into the river. His ribs bent inward like snapped reeds. His spine cracked. His guts spilled free, coiling into the water in long, glistening ropes. The beast rolled. The hunter's body twisted with it, bones breaking, flesh ripping, skin peeling away in strips. His arms flailed, clawing at the water, shredding his nails bloody against invisible scales. One arm tore free entirely, drifting for a moment like driftwood before sinking. The crocodile surfaced with what remained. Its jaws worked once, twice, then split the man in half. The upper body floated briefly, eyes wide, mouth open in a silent scream. Then it too was dragged under. Another man rushed forward, spear raised. He drove it down. The point slid between scales, sinking into muscle. The crocodile hissed, twisting. The spear ripped free. The man didn't. Jaws clamped down on his leg. The bone snapped with a sharp crack. The limb tore loose, leaving him thrashing, blood pumping from the ragged stump. He tried to crawl toward shore. The beast struck again, clamping his torso. Teeth pierced through his chest, splintering ribs, puncturing lung. His scream became a gurgle as blood poured from his mouth. The crocodile pulled him under. The water swallowed the sound. Silence, then bubbles. Then the river turned red, thick and swirling. Pieces floated to the surface, fingers, strips of flesh, a fragment of skull. The rest belonged to the beast. This was the truth of the swamp. Every drink of water came with a price. Every crossing left bones behind. Humans were not hunters here. They were prey. Soft, slow prey. Their screams filled the nights, but the river never echoed them back. The crocodiles didn't just feed, they erased. Whole bodies devoured, leaving nothing but bloodstains and memory. And yet, people still came. They had to. The river was food, water, life itself. To live meant stepping into the jaws of death. Every shadow in the water was hunger. Every ripple was a warning. Every mistake was a grave. And the teeth? The teeth were always waiting. The riverbank reeked of blood. Flies gathered in black clouds over the mud. Bones jutted from the water like broken stakes. This was not a place to drink. This was a battlefield. The clan returned anyway, spears in hand, stones sharpened to jagged edges. Not because they wanted to fight, but because hunger left no choice. The water stirred, slow ripples, shadows beneath. The first strike came without warning. The surface shattered as a jaw clamped onto a man's chest. Teeth pierced straight through ribcage, snapping bone like brittle twigs. Blood sprayed in a hot arc across the bank. The scream cut off as lungs collapsed. The beast dragged him backward into the water, legs kicking once, twice, then gone. The others lunged, spears stabbed, stone blades hacked at armored flesh. The air filled with the sound of wet impacts, wood cracking against scale, men grunting with rage. The crocodile spun, its tail swept across the bank. One man's jaw shattered on impact, teeth spraying into the dirt. Another's legs broke clean in two, the bone ends tearing through skin in white splinters. He tried to crawl, leaving a red trail in the mud. The beast finished him in one bite, spine shearing in half. A trap was sprung. A goat tied to a stake screamed as the water rippled. The monster lunged, and spears rained down. One spear sank into the throat, another into the soft belly where armor split. Blood geysered upward, spraying hunters in red. But the beast did not die. It roared, jaws snapping shut around a hunter's head. Skull crushed like fruit. Brain matter sprayed across the reeds. The body dropped twitching, headless, before being dragged into the river. The leader charged. His weapon, a sharpened mammoth bone, blackened by fire. He screamed, slamming it into the beast's eye. The eye burst. A gush of dark blood spilled down the monster's face. It thrashed, rolling, snapping its jaws on air, tail flattening anything in reach. One hunter was thrown into the river. He surfaced once, gasping, then jaws closed around his waist. The sound of bones snapping echoed across the bank. The water frothed red again. The leader held his spear. The bone drove deeper, tearing brain, cutting nerve. The crocodile convulsed, one last roar, then silence. Its body collapsed into the mud with a heavy crash. Blood poured from its wounds, spreading in black waves across the water. The survivors stood panting, covered in gore, weapons slick with red. There was no victory, only the question, who would die next? This was the first choice. Not between peace and war, not between fear and courage. The only choice that mattered, to die or to endure. The swamp never blinked. Eyes floated just above the surface, yellow, slit, unblinking. Dozens of them, watching. They didn't move. They didn't strike. Not yet. The silence was worse than the attack, because silence meant patience, and patience meant death. A hunter stepped forward, water rising to his thighs. Every muscle in his body trembled, though he forced his spear steady. The surface rippled. A shadow slid beneath him, long as a tree trunk. He froze. Then the water opened. The beast came up beneath him, jaws exploding upward. Teeth drove straight through his spine, spearing bone like wood splinters. His scream was short, high, cut off instantly. Blood sprayed in a hot stream as his chest folded inward. The jaws slammed shut. Half his torso disappeared in a single bite. Arms flailed once, then dropped limp as the monster dragged him under. Another shadow moved, then another. The watchers became attackers. Water erupted around the hunters. Bodies vanished in flashes of teeth and thrashing limbs. The swamp churned red as flesh tore free in long, ragged strips. One man tried to flee. He slipped in the mud. Before he rose, a jaw clamped his thigh. The bone snapped, white shard bursting through skin. He screamed as the beast dragged him backward, nails tearing off in bloody curls against the mud. The river swallowed him whole. The survivors lashed out wildly. Spears jabbed into shadows. One struck true, driving deep into a crocodile's jaw hinge. The monster roared, blood streaming in thick ropes from its mouth. But even wounded, it killed. Its head snapped sideways, teeth shearing straight through a hunter's shoulder. The arm tore free in one brutal rip, dangling from the beast's mouth before being swallowed whole. The man collapsed, writhing, his screams bubbling into sobs as blood poured from the stump in thick gushes. He drowned in his own blood before the beast bothered to finish him. The swamp boiled. Bodies flailed. Jaws snapped. The sound of bones snapping mixed with the wet slap of tails hammering flesh into pulp. The water was not water anymore. It was blood, foam, chunks of meat drifting like rotten fruit. Still, the eyes remained. Even as bodies fell apart, even as spears struck and screams tore the air, new eyes surfaced, silent, watching, not attacking yet, waiting. For every kill, there was another shadow. For every shadow, another set of teeth. The hunters were not fighting beasts. They were fighting the river itself, and the river could not be killed. The swamp stank of iron, not water, not earth, blood. The crocodiles ruled it, but man wanted it. And so the war began. It started at night. Moonlight cut silver lines across the black surface. 2 clans gathered on the bank, their spears tipped with fire. The beasts moved below, silent shadows gliding. A chant rose. Men beat their chests. Feet pounded the mud, rage louder than fear. Then they charged. The first spear struck deep into a jaw. A roar shook the reeds. Flames sizzled against wet flesh. The beast thrashed, tail whipping like a tree trunk. One hunter was smashed against a rock, skull splitting open, brains splattering across the mud like thick paste. Another lunged, ramming fire into the beast's throat. The smell of burning flesh filled the swamp. The crocodile snapped its head sideways, tearing the man's arm off clean at the shoulder. The limb dangled for a heartbeat before dropping into the water with a wet splash. More shadows erupted. The surface exploded in a frenzy of teeth and muscle. One man was pulled under by his legs. His chest burst open as jaws crushed his ribcage, heart and lungs spilling out in a steaming mess across the water. Another tried to run, but a tail wrapped around his body like a whip. His spine cracked in 3 places. He screamed, twitching, while teeth sank into his skull and crushed it like rotten fruit. The clans fought like animals. Spears jabbed, fire roared, stone knives hacked into scaled flesh, blood sprayed high, raining back down in thick, hot sheets. One hunter clung to a beast's back, driving his knife again and again into the neck. The crocodile rolled. The knife went deeper, so did the water. When the roll stopped, the hunter's body was gone. Only the knife floated, slick with blood. The swamp boiled red. Men screamed. Beasts roared. Bodies ripped in half, intestines spilling across the reeds in long coils. Heads vanished in jaws, faces sheared away in a single bite. Children of the clans watched from the trees, their cries drowned out by the wet tearing of flesh. But still, the men fought, not because they believed they could win, but because they knew there was no other choice. At dawn, the swamp was quiet. Floating bodies drifted among the reeds. Men, beasts, no difference. The survivors stood on the bank, dripping with gore, eyes hollow. They had carved a place for themselves in the swamp, but at a cost. The war was not over. It had only begun. The fires burned low. Bodies smoldered in the mud, smoke curling into the dawn. The swamp smelled of cooked flesh, charred meat, and rot. The clans had survived barely, but survival wasn't victory. It was an open wound, and wounds demanded knowledge. The elders gathered, their hands still red, their faces smeared with ash. Around them lay the dead limbs scattered, skulls cracked, spines twisted into grotesque arcs. The beasts had taken their sons, their brothers, their wives, so the elders began to invent. They tore open carcasses of the fallen crocodiles. Knives hacked through muscle, pried open jaws, split bellies wide. The air filled with the stink of rot. Inside, they found bones thicker than clubs, muscles coiled like ropes. They studied every tendon, every hinge of the jaw. One man lifted the skull of a fallen beast. Its teeth gleamed in the firelight. He smashed it against the rocks, prying loose the daggers hidden in its gums. He tied them to a spear shaft with sinew, creating a weapon sharper than any stone. Another slit the stomach, pulling free half-digested flesh. Humans, remnants of the night before. The sight drove him mad. He smeared his body with the blood, swearing vengeance to the swamp itself. Knowledge grew from horror. Berries crushed into black paste, tested first on wounds, then on living captives. The paste frothed in the mouth, burned through veins like fire. Poison, a weapon against giants. They coated spear tips in it, waiting for the next attack. Traps followed. Pits dug deep in the mud, lined with sharpened stakes. Children smeared the stakes with rot, ensuring infection would kill even if the wound didn't. And rituals came too. The dead were burned, but not all of them. Some were offered to the river, throats slit wide, blood pouring into the black water to draw the beasts near. The clans learned to bait them, to lure them into ambush, to turn their hunger against them. But knowledge had its cost. One boy, no older than 10, slipped while smearing poison. He licked his fingers without thinking. Moments later, his body convulsed, eyes rolling white, blood foaming from his nose and lips. His mother screamed as his skin turned black. blisters swelling across his face until it collapsed in on itself. The clan didn't bury him. They left him at the riverbank as an offering. Every invention dripped with blood. Every tactic was born from watching someone die. And still, the crocodiles waited. The clans believed they were growing smarter, but the swamp was patient. It had always been patient. And no knowledge, not fire, not poison, not traps, could ever stop the jaws when they came. The clan had no graves, no earth to dig. The swamp swallowed all. So the dead were not buried. They were given. The bodies were dragged to the banks, some whole, some torn into halves, guts spilling in ropes across the mud. Flies swarmed instantly, black clouds feasting on the open wounds. Children cried as they pulled the corpses by their ankles, heads thudding against stone, eyes wide and glassy. The ritual began at dusk, the air thick with smoke, the stench of rot heavier than breath. The first step was separation. Arms hacked off with stone axes, legs twisted until sinews snapped, then cut away at the joints. Heads split from spines with long, sawing motions. The swamp echoed with wet tearing, like meat pulled apart by hand. No silence, only the crunch of bone, the gurgle of fluids draining, the chants of the living, low, guttural, rhythmic. The second step was offering. The limbs were tossed into the water one by one. A splash, a ripple, then stillness. But eyes waited below. The swamp accepted its gifts. Teeth flashed, the water churned. Arms vanished in a single bite. A leg snapped clean in half, bone floating back up to the surface. Blood poured into the current, spreading a dark red stain. The beasts fed, and the clans believed the living would be spared for one more night. The final step was marking. The heads were not given to the water. They were stripped, knives carved away flesh, cheeks peeled back, eyes scooped out, tongues sliced free, and hung on branches like dripping fruit. The skulls were blackened in fire, then painted with ash and blood, hung from trees, lined along paths, staring, forever silent. They called them the Watchers, eyes for the living, warnings to the beasts. But the truth was different. Every skull was a reminder that the swamp always won. One boy refused. He would not cut his father's body. He screamed, clawed at the elders, begged them to stop. They answered by forcing his face into the chest cavity, blood filling his mouth and nose until he gagged. They made him tear out his father's heart with his own hands. He held it, trembling. It pulsed once, then stilled. The elders smeared the blood across his face. A mark of survival, a curse of memory. When the night fell, the skulls glowed in the firelight. The chants echoed into the black water. The beasts circled beneath the surface, silent, waiting, and the living tried to believe the ritual mattered, that the jaws wouldn't come for them next. But the swamp never forgot, and the skulls were not guardians. They were warnings. The swamp had its rules, but men had none. It started with a plan. 2 hunters, eyes cold and calculating, whispered beside a fire. One clan wanted to claim a feeding ground deep in the reeds. The other, already weakened by the last night's carnage, trusted them. Trust, a dangerous word. The trap was simple. Lead the rival clan to a hidden pit, poisoned stakes lined beneath, water black with blood and mud. The betrayers promised safety, spoke of shared victory. Every word coated in honey, every smile hiding a knife. They led them under cover of darkness, the moon casting silver shadows across the reeds. Then the pit came. Screams tore through the night. Men fell like dolls, arms and legs splintered against sharpened stakes. One fell head first, skull impaled and brain spilling like thick cream into the water. Another's body was ripped open as he landed, intestines caught and shredded against hidden stakes. The betrayers laughed, but it was not relief. It was hunger. Hunger for survival, for territory, for dominance. From the water came resistance. A giant crocodile, disturbed by the chaos, lunged. It tore a man in half, jaws locking on spine and rib. The pit became a slaughterhouse. Blood filled the reeds, floating bodies thrashing. Hands clawed at spears, teeth clamped onto faces. Screams mixed with roars and splashes, echoing into the night. The betrayers struck again. Knives plunged into backs, heads split with stone axes. One man's legs were seized, and another drove a spear through his chest. The water boiled red. The swamp drank deep. One survivor crawled, gasping, dragging a mangled arm behind him. The betrayer raised his axe, swinging, cracking skull. The survivor barely dodged, rolling into the mud, eyes wide with horror. His screams faded into the distance. When it was over, silence fell. Broken reeds swayed. Bodies floated. The water stank of blood and death. The betrayers stood, dripping, victorious but hollow. For in betrayal, they had glimpsed themselves. Monsters, no different from the jaws beneath the water. And the swamp, it waited. It always waited. For the next mistake, the next scream. The first betrayal was not just of trust. It was a lesson in survival. A lesson written in blood. And a warning. Even men could be as deadly as beasts. Darkness was a living thing. It crept through the reeds, slithered across the mud, and whispered death into every ear. The swamp waited, patient, hungry. The clan had learned to fight. But fighting meant weapons. Weapons meant blood. They sharpened bones into cruel daggers, thick as wrists, edges jagged like shark teeth. They hollowed logs, filling them with sharpened stakes, creating clubs that could pierce hides and crush skulls. Spears were coated in crushed berries, poison crawling along the tips like a living thing. The elders demonstrated. Jab, twist, pull. The poison worked slow, searing through veins, and the crocodiles flailed, thrashing into mud and reeds before succumbing. They practiced at night. The swamp became a theater of shadows. Every step, a risk. Every breath, a countdown to death. One hunter struck first. He lurched from the reeds, spear raised. The giant crocodile snapped, jaws wide, dragging his arm into the water. Bones cracked, sinew tore. A scream ripped from his chest. The others attacked, thrusting spears into the beast's eyes, slashing at its throat. Mud sprayed, water boiled red. Blood hit faces, filled mouths, ran into eyes. One man's legs were pinned under the tail. Another bit the arm of the beast as it tried to drag him under. Pain mixed with terror, with adrenaline, with a perverse exhilaration. They learned the rhythm of killing. Distract, jab, twist, strike, pull. Poisoned tips in the gills, hooks in the eyes. If the beast fell, it thrashed like a storm, pulling men into mud and death. They fought anyway. Every kill was a ballet of terror. Every victory stained their hands darker than night. And in the darkness, they whispered, "Survive or die." The swamp didn't care. The crocodiles didn't care. Only the weapons mattered. One hunter, blood pouring down his face, held the final spear to the skull of a thrashing giant. He struck. The crack of bone echoed into the reeds. Silence followed. Not relief, only the echo of survival and the hunger for the next hunt. Every weapon told a story. Every scar, every twisted limb, every death carved into their memory. They became artists of survival, sculptors of violence, inventors of terror, and as dawn broke, painting the swamp red, they knew it was only a matter of time. Time before another attack. Time before another scream. They were alive, but the swamp, it had not been defeated. If you want to see the horrifying strategies early humans used to survive creatures larger than fear itself, subscribe and hit the bell because the next plunges even deeper into blood, fire, and the terrifying intelligence that kept them alive. The night came thick, heavy with the stench of mud and blood. The swamp whispered in hunger, and the children were too close to its teeth. They ran, tiny feet splashing in fetid water, hearts hammering like drums of doom. The reeds clawed at their arms and legs, trying to pull them down, but the real threat lurked below. Eyes glinted from the black water, jaws opened wider than fear itself. The first scream shattered the air. A boy, no older than 10, felt teeth snap into his leg. Bone splintered, flesh tore. He tumbled into the mud, dragging a limb behind him, blood spraying like liquid fire across the reeds. The others froze, too young to fight, too terrified to run. The hunters arrived, weapons in hand, faces smeared with yesterday's carnage. They didn't hesitate. Spears stabbed the water, thrusting into thrashing jaws. The crocodile screamed, a wet, gurgling sound that reverberated through the swamp. It pulled the boy deeper, dragging him toward the black heart of the water. Hands grabbed at the beast's tail, claws sinking into scales, teeth flashing, spitting mud and blood. The second child fell into a pit of poisoned stakes. He shrieked as the stakes ripped through his body, each puncture burning like fire. The swamp drank greedily. The hunters cursed, striking, stabbing, smashing, but the ground claimed him piece by piece. Time warped, seconds stretched into eternity. A child's scream, a spear's crack, a jaw snapping looped endlessly in the night. Mud clung to hair, blood filled eyes, and terror became a tangible weight pressing on lungs, crushing ribs, demanding breath that might not come. One girl, trembling, stumbled into a trap of hidden ropes. They twisted, binding her limbs, jerking her to the ground. She kicked, clawed, spat, but the swamp was patient. The hunters arrived only to see her face, contorted, eyes wide and unblinking, smeared with her own blood from a fall into jagged reeds. They cut the ropes, but her chest heaved in ragged terror. Every inhale a reminder that death had only paused, not fled. When dawn finally bled into the reeds, 3 children were gone, taken by teeth, stakes, or the mud itself. The rest sat shivering, trembling, faces painted in streaks of blood, clutching each other for warmth that could not mask the horror. Time had been stolen. Childhood ripped away in the span of a night. The swamp remained, silent, patient, hungry still. The hunters cleaned their weapons in silence. Every blade, every spear, every sharpened bone glistened red in the weak light. A warning. Survival demanded cruelty. Every second lost could mean more screams, more blood, more terror. The swamp waited, hungry, patient. One hunter survived. He crawled through mud, blood on his hands, bones broken, heart pounding. The giant crocodile circled, eyes like molten gold, teeth flashing in the moonlight. It smelled fear. It smelled blood. He gripped a sharpened bone, pointed, jabbed, twisted. The crocodile thrashed. Water exploded. Mud sprayed. Screams filled the night. He ran. He stumbled. The swamp tried to swallow him whole. Every step was fire in his muscles. Every breath was poison in his lungs. He remembered the trap. A pit of spikes, hidden by reeds. He lured the beast. Threw stones. Shouted. Blood dripped from the crocodile's jaws. It lunged. He dodged. The creature fell. Spikes pierced flesh. Sinew tore. Mud churned red. The swamp drank deeply. He didn't celebrate. Not yet. Death was everywhere. Even victory had a smell. A taste of iron and mud. He scavenged. Bones became knives. Sticks became spears. Reeds became ropes. Every tool was a weapon. Every weapon was survival. The survivor moved silently. Night was his ally. He listened. He watched. He struck. No hesitation. No mercy. A second crocodile attacked. He met it with fire and poison. Flames licked scales. Screams tore the air. The swamp trembled. By dawn, he stood alone, breathing hard. Covered in mud and blood, the gift of survival burned in his veins. He knew the swamp. He knew the teeth. He knew the screams. Every scar was a lesson. Every drop of blood a teacher. Every narrow escape a story carved in pain. The survivor's gift was simple. Kill. Live. Repeat. The swamp waited, and he would be ready. The cold came fast, biting, unforgiving. Water froze in seconds. Mud hardened into jagged glass. Breath turned to steam. The swamp became a cage. He walked carefully. Every step cracked the ice. Every crack echoed like a scream. Something moved below. Something huge, hungry. Voices whispered. Not human, not animal. Cold, guttural, ancient. They seemed to crawl into his skull, biting at thought, dragging fear from the marrow. A shadow slid under the ice. Scales scraped stone. Jaws opened. A single eye glinted gold. The giant crocodile, silent, waiting. He froze. Mud froze to skin. Heart beat like a drum in a tomb. Fingers gripped the spear. Knuckles white. He had no choice. The ice cracked. Water exploded upward. The crocodile lunged. Teeth ripped the ice like paper. Cold water engulfed him. He gasped. Blood turned the ice red. He stabbed, twisted. The beast roared. Ice shattered under its weight. It dragged him toward the depths. A second hunter joined. Spears struck. Bone met scale. Blood sprayed. Screams echoed beneath the frozen canopy. The swamp became a violent chorus. The ice broke. Water gushed like a river of death. They wrestled the creature. Hands tore flesh. Teeth clashed with bone. Mud and blood mixed into a living nightmare. The crocodile thrashed. Its strength unmatched. Yet fear was sharper. Pain was precise. The hunters pressed. Stabbed. Burned. The beast faltered. Finally, it sank beneath the ice. Still, silent. Defeated, but not gone. The water whispered. The voices returned. Cold. Ancient. Waiting. They stood, shivering. Limbs shaking. Blood freezing to skin. Every breath a ghost. Every heartbeat a warning. The swamp was alive, not just with creatures, with memories. Of blood spilled. Of terror endured. Of survival clawed from the jaws of death. The hunter survived. But the voices beneath ice never left. Cold, patient, hungry. They whispered promises of more teeth, more screams. Night fell, thick, swallowing the swamp. The hunters huddled around a fire. Flames danced like demons. Heat seared their faces. Smoke burned eyes. But it was life. Only life. The crocodiles waited, hungry, silent, shadows moving beneath black water. Each ripple a promise of teeth. A hand reached for the fire. A branch. Ignition. Flames roared. The first spark became a wall. Heat became protection. They cooked meat. Blood dripping into mud. The smell drew predators. The fire hissed as claws struck the embers. Sparks flew. One hunter swung a torch. Scales hissed. A crocodile lunged. Teeth snapped. Flames met flesh. A scream shredded the night. They fought with fire. Spears burned. Stakes lit. Smoke choked. Blood ran hot. Mud became paste. Pain became a weapon. One hunter charged, torch in hand. Bones broke under force. Flesh melted under fire. The beast thrashed, tearing at air, claws, and fire. Heat licked faces, sparks in hair, screams in ears. The firekeepers coordinated. One distracted, one stabbed, one pushed into flames. A symphony of violence. Red light painted the swamp. Shadows writhed. Every movement was death. Crocodiles fell. Screams stopped. The swamp went quiet, except for the fire. Hungry, alive, dangerous, they tended the flames, adding fuel. Blood and mud caked on skin. Every ember a warning. Every flicker a life saved. Or lost. The hunters learned. Fire was more than warmth. It was survival. It was control. It was vengeance. The swamp waited. Teeth still glinted beneath the black water. The firekeepers would need more than courage. They would need cunning. Every spark a strategy. Every scream a lesson. Night passed. Bodies burned. Mud dried. Scars formed. The firekeepers survived. For now, night sang, low, guttural, like a predator's growl. The hunters moved silently. Mud clung to legs, blood clung to hands. Every step a risk, every breath a gamble. From the reeds, voices rose, not human, not animal. A song of hunger, a song of teeth. It crawled into their bones, shivered down their spines. They answered, low chants, rhythms of survival, not for beauty, but for warning, for power, for life. A crocodile lunged, teeth ripped mud, flesh sprayed. The song didn't stop. Hands jabbed spears, bones shattered, blood ran warm. The hunters twisted, dodged, rolled. The song guided them, a rhythm in chaos, a map in terror, each note a signal, each scream a warning. Another beast appeared, larger, older, eyes like embers. It lunged with silent intent. The song rose, a chorus of fire and iron. Spears struck scales. Claws shredded flesh. Screams mingled with chanting. The swamp became a bloody concert. Mud and water churned. Red mist filled the air. One hunter fell, teeth through shoulder, blood everywhere. But the song continued. Hands dragged him back. Spears drove into the beast. It roared. The swamp shook. They danced in death. Rhythm of fear. Pulse of survival. every note a weapon, every beat a heartbeat in sync with blood. The beasts fell, moaning in pain. The hunters stood, breathing fire, covered in mud and blood. Alive, the song lingered. It wasn't just sound, it was memory, it was warning, it was a promise. They understood. Music could kill, music could guide, music could survive. The swamp waited, hungry still, every note a trap, every silence a threat. Night swallowed them. Cold seeped into bones, mud froze to skin. Sleep was impossible, eyes closed, but the mind wandered into a swamp of nightmares. Teeth gleamed in darkness. Claws scraped the earth. Blood flowed like rivers. A vision struck. A crocodile, larger than a tree. Its jaws wider than a hut. It moved without sound. Hunger radiated from every scale. The dream became real. Water surged in lungs. Mud clung like chains. Screams echoed from nowhere and everywhere. Hands clawed at air. Blood dripped onto the sleeping earth. Hunters fell one by one, dragged beneath icy waters. Tears froze on faces. Flesh shredded. Bone cracked. The swamp devoured them. A shadow whispered. Not human, not animal, ancient and patient. It promised survival, but at a cost. One hunter awoke, heart hammering, mud wet with sweat, blood still warm. He shivered. Every muscle screamed. The vision persisted. In the mind, in the breath, in the pulse, a crocodile's eye glinted in every reflection. Every shadow hid teeth. He touched the fire, felt its warmth, a reminder of life. But fear lingered, eternal, a shadow inside his skull. The swamp waited outside, hungry, patient. It did not forget. It did not forgive. Another hunter awoke, screaming. Claws had appeared in dreams, teeth in the air, blood in the mud. The line between sleep and death blurred. The dream taught caution, bravery, patience. Every movement mattered. Every breath could be the last. Morning came. Light cut through mist, but the terror remained. The dream of eternity lingered in eyes, in the pulse, in the blood. Hunters knew. Survival was not just physical. It was mental. It was terror. It was the shadow of death in every reflection. The swamp would return. The crocodiles would wait. The dream of eternity would follow. Silent, lethal, unending. Rain fell like arrows, heavy, relentless. The swamp churned. Water rose. Flesh sank into mud. Hunters scrambled. Mud clung. Blood mixed with water. Every step a struggle. Every breath a gamble. Crocodiles moved with the flood. Larger, hungrier. Eyes glinting like molten gold. Teeth cutting through murky water. A hunter screamed, dragged under by unseen jaws. Water filled his mouth. Mud filled his lungs. Silence followed. Only bubbles broke the surface. The rest fought the current. Spears barely pierced scales. Hands clung to roots. Flesh tore on branches. Pain was everywhere. Everywhere. Lightning cracked, illuminating monsters beneath water. Claws ripped through mud and bone. Blood clouded the flood. The smell of iron thickened the air. Another crocodile surged, snapped at a hunter's leg. Flesh shredded. He kicked, screamed, drowned. The water swallowed his struggle. Only the fire of survival kept the others moving. They tried to trap the beasts. Branches and rocks became weapons. Spear through jaw, hands on scales, mud in eyes, blood mixed with rain. Chaos reigned. One hunter grabbed a torch, fired it into the teeth of the largest crocodile. It thrashed. Water boiled around it. Screams pierced the storm. Flesh smoked. Mud spattered everywhere. The flood surged higher. Hunters were tossed like leaves. Claws tore. Teeth snapped. Bodies vanished beneath water. Only screams remained. A moment of silence. Then another attack. Relentless. The swamp remembered. Hunters were prey. They survived by cunning, by luck, by fire and spear. Every movement calculated. Every breath precious. Every heartbeat a gamble with death. Dawn arrived. Water receded. Bodies floated. Mud clung to mangled limbs. Crocodiles retreated. The survivors stood, shivering, bleeding, alive. The flood left memory, a brutal lesson. The swamp's teeth would always wait. Hunters would never forget. He stalked the reeds, spear in hand, eyes sharp, breath slow. A shadow moved beneath the water, too large, too silent, teeth like iron. The hunter froze. A ripple, a flick of a tail, then chaos. The crocodile lunged. Mud exploded. Water sprayed. The hunter swung the spear. It sank deep, but the beast didn't flinch. Claws ripped through mud. Flesh tore. The hunter screamed. Hands scratched the bank. Blood mixed with rainwater. Taste of iron filled his mouth. He jabbed again, twisted, dug deep. The beast thrashed. The river became a blood-soaked arena. Every strike was a gamble. Every second a dance with death. Another crocodile emerged, larger, older, eyes glowing. It circled, calculated, hungry. The hunter realized he was not the hunter today. He was prey. Spears flailed. Hands grabbed claws. Mud clung to bloodied skin. The beast slammed him into a tree. Bone cracked. Pain exploded in every nerve. He twisted again, drove the spear into its jaw. Teeth grazed his leg. Flesh shredded. He smelled himself burning. Blood, iron, fear. The water churned. The beast screamed. The hunter roared. Adrenaline flooded. Every muscle screamed. The crocodile lunged again. Claws tore through leg. Spear lodged in skull. The hunter grabbed its tail, dragged it down. Mud bubbled with violence. Blood painted the reeds red. Finally, silence. The beast lay still. Shallow breaths, mud dripping, flesh torn. Victory tasted like copper, but the hunter was broken. Bones shattered, skin shredded, blood everywhere. Pain was memory. The swamp still waited. He had learned. Predators do not forgive. Hunting is a gamble. Today, he survived. Tomorrow, he might not. The cliffs loomed, sharp, cold, jagged like teeth. Hunters approached. Every step echoed. Stone held secrets. Carvings of beasts, marks of hunts long past, blood smeared into cracks, echoes of screams trapped in rock. A hunter spotted a trap, a pit hidden under leaves. Sharp stakes at the bottom. One misstep meant death. Fear ignited adrenaline. Every step measured. They pressed forward. Cliffs narrowed. Reeds scraped skin. Mud stuck to ankles. Bones ached. Then a roar. Not from the river, not from the swamp, from the stone itself. A rock fall? Or something worse? A boulder tumbled. Hunters dove. Mud and blood mixed. The earth claimed one. Bones snapped under weight. Screams echoed. Then silence. Others reached the carved cave. Inside, the air smelled of decay. Ancient fires flickered in memory. Marks on walls told of battles. Crocodiles dragged hunters. Spears shattered skulls. Blood-soaked stone. A strategy revealed itself. Carve traps. Use shadows. Drive prey into death. It was cunning, brutal, necessary. Hunters gathered stones. Sharp edges. Thrown with precision. Distracting predators. Blinding them. Lacerating skin. A giant crocodile appeared. Eye glinting in rock shadow. Muscles rippled beneath scales. It lunged. Hunters scattered. Spears struck. Stones shattered skulls. Blood painted stone red. The cave became a battleground. Screams tore the air. Claws tore flesh. Bones cracked on stone. Mud turned to slurry of blood and fear. One hunter leapt from ledge. Drove spear through jaw. The beast thrashed. Blood sprayed rock walls. Death lingered in the echo. Silence followed. Stone was witness. Every scar told a story. Every bloodstain, a warning. The cliffs held memory, and the hunters survived by learning it. Secrets in stone were brutal. Cleverness was survival. Violence carved lessons. Every step could be final. Every moment demanded fear. The river roared. Hunters gathered. Mud clung. Blood still dried on skin. One hunter stepped forward, shivering, eyes wide with fear. The group circled. Spear tips gleamed. The chosen had to face the river first. The crocodiles waited. Teeth like jagged rocks. Water churned with muscle and hunger. He entered. Feet sank into mud. Water rose to knees. A ripple, then a surge. A massive jaw opened. The hunter swung a spear. It grazed scales. The beast thrashed. Water exploded. He was slammed into the mud. Pain shredded ribs. Blood mixed with river water. Another hunter acted. Threw a rock into the beast's eye. It roared. Tail smashed the chosen into reeds. Limbs twisted. Bones snapped. The river became chaos. Claws shredded skin. Teeth ripped muscle. Screams echoed. Blood coated water and mud. The taste of iron filled mouths. Desperate, the hunters coordinated. One distracted from behind a rock. Another drove a spear into the skull. A third smeared berry poison into the wound. The beast thrashed violently. Its roar shook the reeds. The chosen survivor stumbled. Flesh torn, breath ragged, eyes wide, alive barely. The group pulled him to safety. Crocodiles retreated. Water calmed. Mud slicked the bloodied earth. The sacrifice had survived. Not all would be so lucky. Survival was pain. Survival was violence. Survival was cunning. The river remembered. Teeth still waited. Blood still lingered. Hunters knew the cost. Fear sharpened every movement. Every strike now calculated. Every heartbeat a gamble. The chosen looked back. The river reflected terror. Flesh, blood, bone etched into memory. A brutal lesson in life and death. The clan moved forward. The flood, the claws, the sacrifice, they survived. But the swamp whispered warnings, and predators never forgave mistakes. If the terror, blood, and survival adrenaline gripped you, subscribe now. Smoke curled into the sky. Flickering orange, hunters gathered around the blaze. Hands scorched, eyes wide. The fire was power. Life and death intertwined in flame. It kept predators away. It cooked flesh. It burned disease. One hunter demonstrated. A dry branch snapped. Sparks flew. The fire roared to life. Heat licked skin. Blood still fresh on hands. The young watched. Fear and fascination tangled. Each spark a lesson. Each ember a warning. They practiced. Thrown sticks, rotten wood. Flames climbed. Smoke stung eyes, hands blistered, pain etched memory deeper than words. Suddenly, a ripple in the river, crocodile eyes glinting, hunters froze. Fire was the first shield. Flames cast shadows. The beast hissed, then lunged. Sparks flew into water, mud sprayed, spears slammed into scales. The fire illuminated thrashing limbs. Blood painted flames red. Pain, fear, and heat merged. One young hunter hesitated. A flash of teeth, a claw-ripped arm. Screams tore the night. The fire's heat was comfort. It was survival. The teacher grabbed a torch, drove it into the beast's eyes. Crocodile roared, twisted, thrashed. Blood sprayed, steam hissed. Victory smelled of iron and smoke. Lessons weren't gentle. They were violent, brutal, necessary. Every burn, cut, and scream taught wisdom. The fire passed from hand to hand, a ritual of survival, not ceremony. Blood was present. Fear was present. Life was present. By night's end, every hunter knew. Fire was weapon and shield. Knowledge was survival. Ignorance meant death. The river calmed. Shadows shrank. Bones ached. Mud dried. But the memory burned brighter than the fire. The young would remember. Every scream, every claw, every spark. The river and its beasts were not forgiving. The fire ensured they survived. The land was a puzzle. Rivers cut like knives. Cliffs jutted like teeth. Every step a question. Hunters moved silently. Eyes scanned reeds. Every ripple, every shadow, every broken branch told a story. The crocodiles left traces. Mud pressed with claws. Blood dragged across sand. Bones cracked underfoot. Hunters read it like a language. A misstep could be fatal. Every path held danger. Every creek could hide teeth. Every shadow could hold death. They passed through marshes. Water sucked at legs. Mud claimed boots. Bones strained. Fear thrummed in every heartbeat. One hunter stopped. A footprint, deeper than it should be. Scales scattered. A trail to death. The invisible map revealed itself. They followed. Branches snapped. Reeds whispered. Claws glinted in shallow water. The predator watched, unseen. A sudden splash. Water erupted. A massive crocodile lunged. Teeth shredded mud and flesh. Screams echoed. Spears struck. Blood sprayed reeds. Hunters adapted. They split. Created diversions. Stones, fire, yells. The map in their minds guided them. Every move precise. Every strike calculated. One hunter was grazed. Skin ripped. Pain flared. Blood-soaked mud. The lesson burned deeper. The riverbank became chaos. Mud churned with thrashing limbs. Bones cracked. Blood-painted reeds red. Predator and prey tested each other. Finally, the beast withdrew. The invisible map worked. Every step, every mark remembered. Every predator tracked. Every path dangerous, yet mastered. Hunters moved onward. The swamp whispered warnings, but knowledge gave them edge. Instinct sharpened by violence. Every scar, every bruise, every spray of blood was a guide. By nightfall, the hunters reached higher ground. Bones ached, hands blistered, eyes wide and alert. But the map inside them had grown. The land no longer hid its secrets. The invisible map was brutal. Every mistake left a mark. Every observation saved a life. Death lurked in every ripple. The land itself was a teacher. Screams echoed in the swamp. Blood pooled in the mud. Bones protruded through torn skin. The wounded writhed. Pain made them scream. One hunter knelt, hands slick with blood, mud and earth clinging to skin. They pressed leaves against gashes. Thorns ripped through fingers. Pain mirrored the patient's scream. The healer's eyes burned with focus. Every movement precise. Every tear of flesh remembered. They applied crushed herbs, bitter, sticky. Fire from a nearby torch seared infected skin. The injured howled, muscles twisted in agony. Pain was a teacher. Screams echoed through reeds. The swamp swallowed cries. They stitched with thorns. Flesh pulled tight. Blood flowed like water in the river. The healer's hands shook, but knowledge drove them. One limb nearly lost. Claws had shredded it beyond recognition. The healer worked furiously. Sinew tied, bark smeared. The patient screamed. Pain burned. Life clung desperately. They observed patterns. Which herbs stung? Which leaves stopped infection? Which fire cauterized without killing? Knowledge forged through agony. Another injured hunter arrived, jaw ripped, cheek hanging, blood-coated mud. The healer tore more leaves, pressed, whipped, stitched, blood-splattered hands, face, and ground. The swamp watched silently. Predators nearby, waiting. Fire flickered, shadows twisted. The healer's hands moved like a predator themselves. Pain became ritual. Every scream a lesson. Every tear a teacher. The first healers survived by embracing violence and suffering. Healing was brutal. Healing was intimate. Healing was survival. By nightfall, the injured groaned less. Blood still slick. Pain still raw. But life had returned to trembling hands and legs. The healer stepped back. Mud caked their skin. Eyes red from smoke and exertion. Knowledge burned brighter than the torchlight. The swamp was unforgiving. But humans endured, bloodied, raw, alive. Survival demanded brutality. Even healing was a battle. Even life was edged in violence. Knowledge demanded blood. Every lesson exacted a toll. Every discovery came with screams. Pain carved understanding into flesh. Hunters circled the riverbank, eyes sharp, hands trembling. They studied the water. A massive crocodile glided beneath. Scales scraped stones. The beast watched silently. A young hunter stepped forward, torch in hand, spear ready. A slip, a miscalculation. The creature lunged. Teeth sank through mud and arm. Blood gushed. Screams tore through reeds. Pain was immediate, horror absolute. The others reacted. Spears jabbed, stones thrown. Blood sprayed in chaotic arcs. The beast thrashed. The river boiled with violence. One hunter dragged the wounded back, mud and blood clinging, a raw, pulsating wound. Knowledge was written in agony. Every mistake remembered. Every success bought with pain. Fire flared. Leaves and herbs crushed into a paste. Painful burns cauterized flesh. Sinew tied tight. Screams echoed into the night. The swamp listened. The lesson was clear. Wisdom demanded sacrifice. Every survivor carried scars. Every scar told a story. Every story was written in blood. Another hunter tested a trap, a snare across the water. The crocodile charged. Bones shattered. Blood sprayed like rivers. Screams rose over the swamp, yet the survivors learned. Every claw mark, every torn limb, every scream became knowledge. Maps of predator behavior etched into memory. The landscape memorized through agony. By sunrise, the price was clear. Several had bleeding arms, torn flesh, twisted limbs, yet the knowledge survived. Understanding born from violence. Insight forged in suffering. Pain was their guide. Blood was their teacher. Wisdom was never free. It was purchased with screams. It was sealed with scars. The swamp was silent. Only whispers of past battles remained. Lessons learned in agony. The survivors moved forward, hearts pounding, eyes wide, bodies trembling, all for survival. Fire hissed. Smoke clawed at eyes. Hands shook. A spear snapped in half. Blood oozed from a cut. The hunter cursed. Pain sharpened awareness. Anger sparked innovation. A broken spear became a lesson. Fragments could pierce deeper. Wood splintered. Stone sharpened like teeth. Another hunter stumbled. Leg caught in a trap. Pain seared through bone. Blood poured. Screams ripped the air. Instinct kicked in. They dragged the limb. A new method of restraint emerged. Mud and blood mixed. Hands pressed raw stone against fractured wood. Sparks flew. The smell of charred skin and wet earth filled the swamp. Accident birthed strategy. The crocodile watched, silent. Hunters noticed the pattern. Every failed trap, every misstep, every bloody accident became data. One hunter tested a sharpened bone. It sank through hide like butter. Blood sprayed the reeds. The crocodile roared. Mud churned. Pain screamed. Victory tasted metallic. Another misstep. A fire flare caught reeds. Flames licked the water's edge. Screams, panic, chaos. Yet, in the inferno, a new approach was born. Smoke could drive predators. Heat could guide the hunt. Hands blistered. Fingers torn. Every injury a lesson. Every scar a blueprint. Knowledge carved in flesh and fire. The hunters worked through night. Bones snapped. Blood mixed with mud. Tools evolved with each accident. Spears, traps, fire patterns. All shaped by pain. All honed by violence. The swamp trembled under their actions. Predators lurked. The hunters learned fast. Every failure tested limits. Every wound marked progress. Dawn revealed new weapons. Stone-tipped spears, bone hooks, fire barriers. Bloodied hands lifted them. Survival had been reinvented. In every scar, every bruise, every failure lay a spark. Accidents became strategy. Pain became insight. Blood became innovation. Stone met bone. Wood snapped. Blood dripped. The first weapons were born from violence. Hunters sharpened jagged rocks. Edges glistened red. Hands slick with sweat and blood. A spear could pierce hide. A club could crush skulls. Power felt immediate. One hunter swung, cracked a crocodile's jaw. Blood sprayed like rain. Pain screamed in the air. Victory came with a roar. Mud and reeds smeared with gore. Every motion deliberate. Every strike calculated. Every injury remembered. Weapons became extensions of rage. Bone knives cut open hides. Torn flesh dripped. Claws ripped. Teeth tore. Blood painted the reeds. The hunters learned quickly. Fire became a tool too. Flames scorched scales. Smoke blinded eyes. Predators panicked. Chaos was weaponized. Traps waited in shadows. Thorns, sharpened sticks, hidden pits. The swamp itself became a tool of war. Every misstep could kill. Every kill taught. Hands blistered, arms bleeding. The hunters pressed on. Every scar fueled invention. Every wound refined strategy. A crocodile lunged. Spears met its side. Claws tore at hunters. Blood sprayed. Pain screamed. The beast fell. The swamp shivered with death. Weapons were not just survival, they were dominance. Power measured in blood. Pain became a teacher. Every injury, every near-death shaped strength. The hunters observed each other, learned new strikes, tested new tools. Mistakes became lessons. Blood became maps of improvement. By nightfall, the swamp was littered. Bones, blood, broken weapons. Yet survivors stood taller, stronger, sharpened by violence. Every tool carried history. Every wound told a story. Every kill reinforced power. Night fell, the swamp whispered. Hunters moved like shadows. Every step calculated. Every breath measured. Predators slept, or thought they did. The hunters watched, eyes glinting in torchlight. Spears gripped. Claws, teeth, fire, they held all the cards. A crocodile stirred. Ripples on the water. Silent feet approached. A spear lifted. Pain waited. The strike was precise. Blood erupted. The beast thrashed. Chaos contained in silence. Lessons from countless failures. Every scar, every wound, every misstep turned into technique. They moved without sound. Attacks were swift, sudden, deadly. The swamp became a stage. Reeds shattered under silent footsteps. Branches snapped only when necessary. Predators never saw the hunters coming, until it was too late. One hunter leapt from the shadows. Spear plunged into scales. Blood sprayed. Pain screamed. The crocodile fought, but the hunters were a symphony of coordinated strikes. Each death was a lesson. Every wound inflicted on them taught restraint, patience, timing, brutality controlled, violence precise, silent revolution, traps set in moonlight, blades hidden in reeds, bones sharpened. Every strategy tested in agony and survival. Every success born in blood. Hands blistered, fingers torn. Pain drove innovation. Every hunter became a master of ambush. Every predator learned fear. By dawn, the swamp was quiet again. Bodies of beasts lay strewn. Blood-soaked earth, reeds, and mud. The hunters moved unseen. Power whispered in their veins. They had learned the ultimate truth. Violence could be controlled. Pain could be harnessed. Fear could be wielded. The silent revolution was complete. Not by brute force alone. Not by reckless chaos. By strategy, patience, and the willingness to embrace suffering. Every strike, every trap, every death, a step toward dominance. Every lesson carved in flesh. Every scar mapped a path to survival. Mist choked the swamp. The air reeked of decay. Hunters stepped into the unknown. Every shadow could hide death. Every sound could signal the end. Branches snapped underfoot. Eyes scanned the darkness. Predators waited. Crocodiles, cats, snakes hungry, patient, lethal. Hunters gripped weapons. Blood mingled with sweat. Fear sharpened every sense. A sudden splash, water erupted. A giant crocodile lunged. Teeth glinted. Pain screamed. Spear met side. Blood sprayed. Chaos collided with precision. The hunters scattered. Mud-coated skin. Hands slipped on blood. One hunter tripped. A claw tore flesh. Pain ignited. Screams ripped the night. Another strike. Bone plunged into eye. Blood-filled mouth and nose. The beast thrashed violently. Its roar shook reeds. Victory tasted metallic, but the unknown remained. Night dragged on. Every step could be the last. Every encounter etched lessons into memory. Violence became instinct. Survival demanded brutality. Hunters discovered new terrain, steep banks, hidden pools, thorny brush. Each hazard transformed into weapon or trap. Blood-painted paths. Every misstep could kill. Every success inspired. Another predator approached. Silent, deadly. The hunters struck first. Spears, knives, fire, they met pain with pain. Flesh tore. Blood dripped in thick streams. The unknown claimed its terror, but the hunters endured. Hands blistered, bodies exhausted. Yet they pressed forward. Every scar marked distance traveled. Every wound mapped lessons learned. By dawn, the swamp revealed new knowledge. Hidden paths, safe zones, ambush points. Predators had been tested. Survival had been bought in blood. The unknown had been charted at the cost of flesh and fear. Every step deeper into the unknown hardened the hunters. Every violent encounter sharpened mind and body. Every scream and spray of blood etched survival into memory. Paths across the unknown were not just terrain, they were trials. The jungle itself, a teacher of pain. Every lesson written in scars. Every predator crushed under the weight of human ingenuity and brutality. The sky cracked. Red light spilled across the swamp. Heat burned skin. Ash rained like bullets. The air choked with smoke and fire. Hunters scrambled. Mud clung to bleeding feet. Screams pierced the haze. Predators panicked. Crocodiles thrashed in burning water. Teeth snapped. Claws tore. Chaos devoured the swamp. A firestorm surged. Trees ignited. Reeds fell ablaze. The air shimmered with heat and blood. Hunters fought not just beasts, but the inferno itself. One hunter hurled a spear. It struck a panicked crocodile. Blood mingled with flames. The beast roared, burning scales cracking. Pain screamed. Death followed close behind. Mud and ash-coated skin. Eyes stung. Every breath burned. Hands grasped weapons with blistered fingers. Every strike was survival. Every kill tasted of fire and fear. Crocodiles lunged blindly. Claws slashed. Flesh tore. Blood sprayed into smoke. Hunters pivoted, stabbed, screamed. Violence was the only language that worked. The swamp shifted. Hidden pits filled with firewater. Traps became death traps. Predators and humans alike suffered. Every step could crush, burn, drown, or pierce. A tree fell, crushed one hunter. Pain erupted in screams. Another lunged to save him. Flesh tore, blood-stained ash. The swamp was a theater of agony. Firestorm met fury. Screams, roars, snapping teeth. Every encounter brutal. Every predator hunted or hunted down. Every kill carved survival into muscle and bone. By nightfall, the swamp was blackened. Bodies of crocodiles, humans, and scorched predators lay tangled. Blood, ash, and soot painted the ground. Survivors staggered, scarred, blistered, alive. Every heartbeat screamed endurance. Every scar told pain and victory. Every inhaled ash-filled breath reminded them of fragility and power. The day the sky burned ended, not with quiet, but with trembling, not with sorrow, but with lessons written in pain and blood. Violence had fused with catastrophe. Survival had been bought in suffering. Ash coated the ground. Bodies lay twisted. Blood clung to mud. The swamp smelled of fire and death. Survivors limped forward. Eyes burned. Hands shook. Every movement a fight against pain. They gathered on a high ridge. Smoke swirled around them. Predators prowled below. Crocodiles dragged burned limbs into the water. Hunters gripped spears. Teeth clenched. Blood dried into streaks on skin. A roar shattered the air. A giant cat leaped from the shadows. Muscles coiled. Claws sliced. Blood sprayed. Hunters attacked. Spears drove deep. Flesh tore. Pain screamed. The cat fell, twitching, teeth gnashing. No one flinched. Every strike, every scream sharpened survival instincts. Ash fell like rain. The ridge became a bloody altar of endurance. Every predator tested. Every human tested. They dragged the bodies back. Blood ran between fingers. Some limbs still twitched. The swamp was alive with death. Every heartbeat a reminder. Survival is violent. Every scar a story. They built a circle. Fire cracked inside it. Weapons sharpened on stone. Blood from prey and predator smeared along edges. Rituals of survival. Pain as ceremony. A giant crocodile lurked nearby. Hunters saw its eyes. They approached silently. Spears ready. A decoy ran forward. The beast snapped. Pain exploded. Blood sprayed. Another hunter drove the spear home. Its roar ended in a gurgle. The swamp shivered. Hands trembled, but adrenaline roared. The survivors stitched wounds, licked blood from fingers. Each scar, fresh or old, a badge of brutality endured. Every predator conquered a reminder. Fear is temporary. Violence is eternal. Night fell. Stars glinted. The swamp whispered. Predators circled. Humans circled fire. All waiting, all bleeding, all alive. The last gathering was not celebration. It was endurance. It was survival written in flesh and blood. It was the raw truth. The swamp only rewards the brutal, the cunning, the relentless. If the brutal, blood-soaked gathering leaves you on edge, subscribe. The fire crackled. Shadows danced on mud-streaked faces. Trust hung fragile. A glance, a twitch, a hesitation enough to die. Two hunters argued. Words like knives, hands gripped spears. The circle tightened. Other eyes watched, calculating, waiting. Betrayal was a heartbeat away. Suddenly, a spear flew. It sank deep into the back of one hunter. Blood fountained. Screams split the air. The traitor lunged forward, eyes wild. Another hunter swung a club. Flesh shattered. Bones cracked. Violence erupted like wildfire. Chaos swallowed the circle. Spears thrust. Claws scratched. Teeth gnawed in panic. Every scream, every stab, carved survival into the mud. The traitor crawled, bleeding, reaching for the fire. Someone stomped on a hand. Bones crunched. Pain screamed louder than words. Ash-filled mouths, burning throats. A predator, a giant crocodile, slipped close. The scent of blood attracted it. Hunters fought on two fronts. One swung a spear, piercing the reptile's eye. Another ripped at its jaw. Blood, fire, and panic intertwined. The circle broke. Allied hunters fought each other. Human and beast tangled together. Every strike screamed betrayal. Every drop of blood screamed trust lost. The traitor fell, crushed under weight of survival. Gurgling, twitching, fading. The circle's order restored by force. Violence dictated who lived. Violence dictated who ruled. Hands slick with blood-grasped, mud-stained spears. Eyes burned with rage and fear. Every heartbeat counted. Every movement calculated. Trust no longer existed. Only survival remained. By dawn, the swamp was silent. Bodies littered the ground. Blood-soaked reeds. Predators fed. Humans bled. The circle had survived, but at what cost? Betrayal left scars deeper than flesh. Pain lingered in every twitch, every shiver, every breath. The fire burned low. Ash and blood mixed. The survivors stared at one another. No words, only understanding. Only warning. Betrayal is death's closest ally. Survival demanded loyalty. Survival demanded brutality. Survival demanded fear harnessed into action. The swamp had spoken. Its lesson was violent. Its lesson was clear. The swamp was behind them. Mud and blood clung to every footstep. The homeland lay ahead, ruined, silent, empty. Smoke rose from shattered huts. Charred remains smoldered in the sun. Predators prowled through the wreckage. Bones of humans and beasts alike scattered. Every step was a gamble. Every breath, a whisper of danger. Hunters gripped spears. Eyes scanned for movement. A shadow flickered. A giant crocodile slid from the riverbank. Teeth gleamed. Muscles rippled under leathery skin. It lunged. Spear met flesh. Blood sprayed into the air. Pain screamed. The hunter staggered, but drove again. Flesh tore. The beast thrashed, dragging mud, blood, and screaming human into the water. Other predators joined. A pack of giant cats. Claws tore through arms and legs. Screams echoed off stone and mud. Violence ruled the lost homeland. The survivors fought with everything. Spear through eye sockets, stone to skull, hands grasping, ripping, smearing blood. Every predator conquered, every wound bleeding, every heartbeat fragile. Amid the chaos, the humans remembered. This was their home, or what was left of it. Every step forward, they reclaimed ground. Every predator slain, a claim marked in blood. Every ally lost, a scar etched into memory. A river blocked the path. Crocodiles waited beneath dark waters. The humans waded in. Water boiled with teeth. Pain erupted. Flesh shredded. Screams mixed with roars. Blood turned the river red. By nightfall, they reached the center. Huts gone. Fire extinguished. The homeland was silent, waiting for survivors to carve life back from death. Hands shook. Eyes burned. Blood dripped onto the mud. The survivors circled. Screams had faded, but fear lingered. Violence had left its mark. The lost homeland was no longer just a place. It was a battlefield, a tomb, A memory written in blood, teeth, and bone. Only those ruthless enough could endure. Only the violent, clever, and merciless could claim it. The air changed, heavy, charged. A scent not their own. Hunters froze, eyes narrowed. A stranger appeared, mud streaked, muscles taut, hands gripping a jagged spear. No words, only glances. The stranger moved slow, each step deliberate, every heartbeat a drum of warning. Then it attacked, spear thrust, aimed at the chest. Metal grazed flesh, pain exploded, blood sprayed into the dirt. The circle responded. Clubs swung, spears stabbed, flesh tore, bone shattered. Screams filled the air. The stranger fell back. Blood ran from a gash across the shoulder. Yet the eyes burned with defiance. A predator as human as themselves. A trap was set. Hunters circled. Mud and sticks became weapons. Berry poison smeared on jagged stones. The stranger lunged. Blood met stone. Pain erupted. Screams echoed. The fight twisted. Hands clawed, tearing at arms. Teeth sunk into necks. A hunter was thrown to the ground. The stranger's spear buried deep into thigh. Blood sprayed. Muscles convulsed. From the river, a giant crocodile emerged, drawn by the scent. Teeth snapping. Massive tail thrashing. Chaos erupted further. The humans adapted. Some distracted the beast. Others drove spears into its jaw. Blood mixed with mud and sweat. Pain and fear burned together. The stranger collapsed, blood pooling beneath him. Yet movement persisted. A hand reached for the fire. A final struggle. Flesh tore. Bone cracked. Survival demanded brutality. By dawn, the circle stood victorious. Breathing heavy, hands shaking, blood smeared everywhere. The stranger's blood mingled with the swamp. Trust was shattered. Violence had spoken. Every heartbeat reminded them. Survival required killing before being killed. The line between hunter and prey blurred. Every drop of blood a lesson. The swamp whispered. New blood had been added to its story. A warning. Strangers bring death. Only the ruthless endure. The fire burned low. Shadows danced on mud walls. A voice whispered, barely human. Ancestral memory surged. Eyes rolled back. Hands trembled. A vision struck. Bloodied hands grasped spears long gone. Teeth tore flesh in distant rivers. Screams echoed across time. The earth shivered. A predator's cry split the night. Hunters tensed. Muscles coiled like springs. Ancestors had warned them. Survival demanded violence. A ritual began. Blood smeared on faces. Mud mixed with ash. The scent of crushed berries filled the air. Every heartbeat aligned with the old rhythm. Then, the spirits acted. Hunters reenacted battles unseen. Spears plunged into air. Teeth sank into arms. Pain pulsed like a drumbeat. A shadow flickered. A giant crocodile appeared by the river. Eyes glowed in reflection. Massive tail smashed reeds. Flesh snapped under its jaws. The vision and reality merged. Hunters struck with fury. Spears through skulls. Clubs shattered bones. Hands ripped claws from claws. Blood sprayed onto mud and fire. Screams intertwined with echoes. Past and present collided. Every strike a lesson. Every wound a story. Pain sharpened instincts. One hunter fell. A claw had ripped through shoulder. Blood poured like a river. Yet the fight continued. Hands smeared with the enemy's blood. Survival demanded no pause. The ancestors watched. Their whispers guided strikes. Spears pierced crocodile jaws. Stones cracked skulls. Berry poison smeared into open wounds. Death became both art and necessity. By dawn, silence returned. Mud was red. Firelight flickered across torn flesh. The swamp remembered the violence. So did the humans. The echoes faded. Only scars remained. Hands shaking. Eyes haunted. The memory of ancestral brutality lingered. Survival demanded a relentless, bloody clarity. The wind carried a stink of blood. Mud clung to every limb. Breathing was heavy. Hearts pounded. Hunters faced each other, not with weapons first, but with questions. Who are we? What separates us from the creatures we kill? A scream split the air. A giant crocodile had slipped past the river bend. Massive jaws snapped. Flesh tore. A hunter fell, clutching a shredded arm. Blood spattered mud and fire. The circle tightened. Spears thrust forward. Clubs swung. Muscles burned with strain. Every heartbeat demanded dominance. Yet inside, a deeper struggle raged. Fear clawed the mind. Violence tested identity. Were they hunters, survivors, monsters? Blood answered before words could. Another hunter lunged. Steel met skull. Cries echoed. Pain tore through limbs. The earth drank deeply. A pause. Eyes met eyes. Recognition of the same blood running through every vein. Yet, survival demanded brutality. Friend and foe blurred. The crocodile charged again. Tail smashed a tree. Spears skewered its flank. Blood ran hot and thick. Screams tore through the swamp's silence. Hands grasped rocks, thrown into the creature's face. Berry poison smeared across wounds. Screaming, struggling, pulling, tearing. Every movement soaked in primal terror. The fight twisted minds. Violence became identity. Pain was proof of being. Every strike, every wound, every scream confirmed existence. Death hovered over every step. When the sun rose, the swamp was littered. Blood and mud everywhere. Breathing heaved. Hands trembled. The circle survived. But the question remained, who are we beneath the blood? The crocodile lay broken. A warning written in red. Survival demanded brutality. Identity was carved from flesh. The swamp remembered, and so did they. Snow fell thick. The river froze. Ice cracked under heavy boots. Breath fogged in the frigid air. Hunger gnawed deep. Hands shook from cold and blood loss. Every step was agony. Every sound carried danger. A shadow moved in the frost. Eyes glinted through frozen reeds. A giant crocodile, or some twisted cousin, prowled under ice. Tail thrashed beneath frozen water. Flesh snapped when it struck. Hunters gritted teeth. Spears shattered ice. Hands clutched rocks and axes. Blood spattered snow, steaming against the cold. The smell of iron burned their noses. Flesh met frost. Claws tore arms. Muscles screamed. Screams echoed across icy banks. The world was a frozen nightmare. One hunter fell, leg mangled. Blood mixed with ice. Desperation sharpened claws and teeth. Berry poison smeared into wounds. Survival demanded savagery. They trapped the predator beneath ice sheets. Logs and rocks pinned it down. Spears drove through skulls and necks. The frozen water boiled with violence. Pain became clarity. Every injury was a lesson. Every scream a warning. Every drop of blood told a story. Hunger pressed harder. They scavenged frozen carcasses, tore meat from bone, chewed sinew with teeth. Hands raw from frostbite, jaws raw from hunger. The cold was alive. It burned skin, froze lungs, crept into bones. Every night was a test. Every shadow, a threat. Every breath could be the last. By firelight, they huddled. Flesh and frost mingled. The fire crackled, casting long shadows. Stories of the day's blood and struggle whispered across the ice. Eyes reflected the nightmare of survival. Morning came, pale and gray. Bodies weary, wounded, scarred. The predators gone, but memories remained. Every scream, every strike, every bite etched into the mind. The long winter was more than cold. It was a crucible of blood and terror. Identity and survival fused in pain. Every heartbeat was earned. Every breath was victory. Dawn came gray and bitter. Snow crusted the swamp. Frost bit through skin. A lone figure moved. Silent, bleeding, alive. He had seen death. Flesh torn, bones crushed. Screams still echoed in his mind. Every scar a story. Every wound a reminder. The river was frozen, but danger lurked beneath. Giant crocodiles waited in cracks of ice. Muscles tensed. Hands gripped spears, slick with blood. Eyes narrowed. A shadow lunged. Teeth snapped inches from his leg. Fingers clawed ice. He drove the spear through its head. Blood exploded, steaming in the cold. Pain screamed. A second predator struck. Tail slammed him into mud. Bones cracked. He roared. Adrenaline burned every nerve. He fought with precision, each movement deadly. Spear, Club, rock, fist fluid violence. Claws tore flesh, teeth snapped jaws. The swamp soaked in blood. Others had fallen. The clan scattered, but he pressed forward. A hero unnoticed, yet relentless. The predator was relentless too. The dance of death continued. Hands grasped icy ground. He rolled, swung, stabbed. Berry poison smeared on claws. Screams blended man and beast, survival and slaughter. Time slowed. Every second was pain. Every heartbeat was terror. Every movement a chance to die or kill. Victory was a mess of blood and frost. The last predator fell. Spears driven through skulls. Bones cracked under heavy clubs. Mud and ice were red. The hero stood, trembling, bleeding, victorious. No one cheered. No songs sung. The swamp remembered. The blood, the struggle, the fear, all etched in silence. He walked alone. Every step painful, every breath victory. Flesh frozen, muscles torn. Yet the heart still beat. Survival claimed him. The hero was forgotten. Only the scars spoke. Only the swamp remembered. Violence had carved a story. Silence carried its weight. Blood runs hot. It carries memory. Ancestors speak in pain, in violence, in survival. A hunter crouched beside a river. Fingers tingled with frostbite. Heart raced, thrumming like a drum. He felt it. The shadow of danger. Giant crocodiles lurked beneath ice. Silent killers waiting. Teeth gleaming, muscles coiled. Every movement a threat. He remembered the stories, scars etched into memory. Claws ripping flesh, bones shattered, blood sprayed in slow arcs. Hands gripped spear. Adrenaline roared. A predator lunged. The smell of iron filled the air. Pain exploded as claws tore his arm. He screamed, but instinct took over. A spin, a thrust, a jab through the skull. Blood spattered frost. The predator went down, writhing. Every hunter had this shadow. It ran through veins, through DNA. The memory of death, of pain, of violence survived as instinct. Another strike came. Teeth snapped inches from the throat. He rolled. Club slammed down. Crack. The world was red. Flesh met bone. Claws met rock. Screams mixed with growls. The river froze in horror. Every heartbeat was a war. And yet, survival continued. Blood healed into memory. The past carved into muscle. The predator, the frost, the agony they lived inside him. This was evolution. Not gentle, not forgiving, but brutal, shaping humanity with every kill. He stood, bleeding, shivering. The shadows retreated, but only for now. The lesson remained. Instinct was survival. Violence was life. The DNA remembers. Every claw, every spear, every scream, every frozen night, every river ambush. It shapes future hands, future hearts, future hunters. The shadows linger, invisible, yet alive, whispering in veins, shaping thought, shaping fear, shaping the will to kill or survive. Legends spoke softly, songs whispered of heroes. But beneath the tales, blood flowed, flesh tore, bones cracked. A hunter crept through reeds, fingers sticky with blood. Heart drummed against ribs. Every shadow was a lie, every sound a threat. The river hid its secrets. Giant crocodiles lurked beneath ice. Eyes glimmered like embers. Muscles coiled. Predators waited. He struck first. Spear through skull. Blood erupted like fire. The creature thrashed. Limbs flailed, smashing ice. Pain screamed through him. Claws slashed arm. Bones snapped. Flesh shredded. Yet he pressed on. Another hunter joined. Rocks, clubs, and axes collided with scales. The river became a battlefield. Red met white. Life and death tangled in ice. Every victory was brutal. Every survival was earned with screams. No songs, no legends, just raw, violent truth. The story beneath the story was carnage, was fear, was relentless struggle. Bodies fell, some dragged into mud, some frozen in ice. The swamp remembered everything. The predator and prey both stained the world with blood. Hands raw from frostbite gripped spears. Eyes burned with adrenaline. Every breath was effort. Every heartbeat demanded strength. Every step was war. The hidden truths of survival shaped the clan. Every scar was a map. Every wound a lesson. Every scream a reminder of mortality. Legends softened the horror. Stories made heroes noble. But beneath the song, blood, sweat, and terror wrote the real tale. They moved silently. The frost biting, the river whispering danger. Every predator, every frozen night. A rehearsal of pain, a blueprint for survival. Violence was the foundation. Savagery, the language. Life and death intertwined like roots beneath the soil. The stories above were mere shadows. The story beneath was real, was visceral, was eternal. The swamp fell silent. Red faded into ice. The hunters survived. The predators died. The truth remained. Unspoken, unseen, imprinted in muscle and bone. Silence fell. The river mirrored the sky, gray and cold. Every shadow carried a whisper. Every frozen footprint spoke of death. The hunters stood, bodies shaking. Blood-coated hands and faces. Flesh met bone. Claws met spear. Life clung by a thread. They had survived the unimaginable. The giant crocodiles, the frost, the river's hunger. Yet survival came with a price. Every breath was haunted. Every heartbeat a memory of terror. The shadows of the fallen stretched across ice. The scent of blood lingered. The predators' eyes had burned into their souls. And they knew this was not the first battle, nor the last. Violence was etched into their DNA. Pain, fear, and death carved their instincts. Every triumph was soaked in red. Every step forward was built on the screams of the past. They looked at each other. Grim understanding passed silently. No words could contain what had been endured. Only memory could carry it. The river, the blood, the claw marks, all whispered the same truth. Humanity was forged in horror. And yet, there was awe, a spark of something eternal. The will to survive, the cunning to turn terror into triumph, the strength to face monsters and live. The lesson was written in scars, in DNA, in every tremor of muscle. The haunting truth: life demanded blood, survival demanded cruelty, and yet humanity endured. The river froze into silence. The hunters limped back, bodies heavy with pain. Yet their eyes held fire. Darkness fell fast. The forest moaned with unseen life. Every branch snapped under weight. Every rustle hid teeth and claws. They moved quietly, eyes wide, senses sharp. Every shadow could be death. Every scent could lure a predator. Something stirred in the undergrowth. A growl rolled low. Fangs flashed in moonlight. Muscles tensed like steel. It was not a crocodile. Not anything they had faced before. Massive, fur matted with mud, claws like sickles, eyes burning like coals. The hunter raised his spear, hands trembling, heart hammering. Adrenaline coursed like fire. The beast lunged. Teeth sank into shoulder. Pain ripped through him. Blood sprayed. Screams cut the night. Others reacted. Rocks thrown. Fire brandished. The creature roared. It smelled blood, thrived on terror. They circled, jabbed, and struck. Claws slashed at legs. Muscles tore. Flesh shredded. The hunters pressed, screaming, striking in synchronized fury. Pain and fear became power. They saw a weak spot. Underbelly, unarmored, spear driven deep. The beast thrashed violently. Limbs broke, roar fading into gurgles. The forest stilled again. The shadow of the beast sprawled on the ground. Breath came in ragged gasps. Bodies shook. Blood-coated hands and faces. They had survived, barely. Every heartbeat screamed. Every muscle burned. Every scream echoed in memory. This was not legend. This was primal truth. Predators, unseen, unknown, waiting in darkness. Every shadow held danger. Every night was a war. They moved onward, cautious, haunted, eyes scanning, ears straining. The forest whispered secrets of survival. Every step a gamble. Every breath a challenge. The forgotten beasts were still out there, waiting, watching, hungry, and humanity's fire, sharp spears, and relentless courage were the only shields. Survival demanded blood. Courage demanded terror. The shadow of the unknown stretched long, and they realized The world was darker than they had imagined, and they were only beginning to face it. The river roared. Ice-cold water churned violently. Rocks tore at skin. Currents twisted like serpents. They approached cautiously, eyes darting, hands gripping weapons. Every sound echoed. Every splash could be death. Something moved beneath the surface. A ripple. Subtle, deceptive. The water bulged. Then exploded. A giant crocodile lunged, jaws wide as terror itself. Teeth like sharpened stakes. The hunters screamed. Blood spattered instantly, mixing with the river's churn. Chaos erupted. Spears flung, rocks hurled, hands grabbed and shoved. The creature snapped again. Flesh tore, bone cracked. Screams pierced the storm of water. One hunter fell, dragged under. The river claimed him in seconds. Another leapt on a rock, spear driven deep into the crocodile's snout. Blood sprayed like a fountain. The beast thrashed violently. Water churned red. Limbs tangled in teeth and claw marks. Adrenaline roared through every vein. They worked as one. Distraction, attack, bite, pull. Berry poison smeared on spear tips. Hands pressed into eyes. Feet stomped on skull. Screams of the river and predator mingled. Finally, silence. The water stilled. Blood drifted downstream. The dead floated like ghosts. The survivors trembled, soaked, broken, alive. The river whispered horrors. Every splash reminded them of mortality. Every current carried echoes of screams. Survival demanded courage and a cruel willingness to spill blood. They dragged their fallen friend from the water, skin pale, eyes staring. Death smelled sharp. The river seemed alive, hungry, judging, waiting. Yet they pressed forward, every step cautious, every heartbeat a warning. The forest waited. Predators lurked. The river had only shown a fraction of what the world held. Blood-stained hands gripped weapons. Water dripped. Eyes burned with rage and terror. The memory of the river etched into their souls. This was survival, not glory, not triumph, just life, carved from teeth, claw, and the merciless flow of the river. The hunters stared into the dark current. The lesson was clear. The world demanded vigilance. The river did not forgive, and the shadow of the next predator would strike before they could blink. Night fell like a suffocating shroud. The fire crackled. Shadows danced. Eyes glinted in the flickering light. They crouched low, spears ready, bodies tense, every sense screaming alert, every breath visible in the cold night air. Movement, a rustle in the brush, something large, something hungry. The firelight flickered across scales. A giant predator emerged. Teeth gleamed white. Claws sank into earth. Muscles rippled like water. The air smelled of sweat and blood. The hunters sprang. Spears jabbed. Rocks hurled. The creature hissed and lunged. It slammed into a tree, splintering wood. Flesh tore. Bones cracked. One hunter fell, screaming. Blood arced in the firelight. Another leapt forward. Spear plunged into shoulder. The creature roared, shaking violently. They circled, a deadly dance of predator and prey. Firelight reflected in eyes, burning terror. Every move could be the last. Every strike meant survival. The predator snapped. Claws raked across legs. Pain exploded. They screamed. Fury and fear twisted together. A plan formed. Distraction, then attack. One hurled a flaming branch. The creature turned. Another drove a spear through its side. Poison smeared from crushed berries stung the wound. The predator thrashed. Blood sprayed across faces. Flesh shredded. Teeth clashed with bone. Screams of rage and pain filled the night. Finally, silence. The creature lay motionless. Blood seeped into dirt and ash. The hunters gasped. Hands trembled. They were alive. The fire flickered. Shadows returned to stillness. Eyes scanned the darkness. Every crack, every rustle, every whisper of wind a potential threat. This was not sport, not honor, just survival. Life carved from terror, teeth, and fire. They tended wounds. Some burned from the poison. Some shook from adrenaline, but they were alive. The night belonged to the fire, and the fire belonged to them. The hunt had ended, but the lesson remained. Night was alive, death lurked in every shadow. Courage was the only weapon, and terror was the constant companion. Morning came heavy with smoke. Ash drifted through the air. Bodies huddled around dying embers. Eyes hollow, hands trembling. The clan had suffered. Loss hung like a stone in the chest. Some faces were gone forever. Blood-stained ground marked their grief. Arguments flared. Blame snapped like brittle bones. Voices rose, fingers pointed. The weight of death fractured bonds. Fear lingered. Every rustle made hearts hammer. Every shadow whispered betrayal. Trust was brittle. Life was fragile. A hunter spat blood onto the dirt. "I did what I had to," he said. Eyes darted. Mouths opened to argue. But silence held. They remembered the river. The firelight hunt. The predator's jaws. Survival had been earned with pain, but at a cost too heavy to name. Children clung to mothers. Hands gripped each other tightly. Eyes wide with questions that had no answers. The dead would not return. They scavenged what remained. Food, weapons, warmth, but everything was tinged with loss. Every meal, every step, every breath carried memory of screams. The fracture was deeper than anger. It was fear made solid. Each knew, one misstep, one wrong choice, and death would strike. The clan could not withstand another blow. One elder whispered, "Strength is not just muscle. It is blood. It is survival. It is what we do when terror scratches at the door." Eyes followed him. Some nodded. Some stared into nothing. Night approached again. Shadows stretched long. The clan gathered close. Weapons in hand. Bodies pressed together for warmth. They listened. The forest hummed with hunger. The river gurgled secrets of death. Every sound a warning. Every moment a test. In the silence, understanding grew. Survival demanded unity. But unity required trust. Trust had been broken, and the fractures might never heal. The clan slept fitfully. Dreams painted in red. Terror, loss, and violence threading through every vision. Morning would come. The hunt would continue. But the fractures lingered, invisible, sharp, deadly. Life was survival, but survival left scars deeper than flesh. The clan would endure, or it would splinter into memory and blood. Night fell like a suffocating curtain. The forest held its breath. Eyes glinted in darkness. Shadows shifted without sound. A lone hunter moved, feet careful, deliberate, spear in hand. Every muscle coiled, ready to snap. A rustle, something large, something unseen. The air thickened with menace. The predator watched, silent, patient. Hunger etched in every sinew. It had hunted before. It had killed before. The hunter froze, breath caught in throat, muscles tense. The earth beneath him alive with threat. A sudden lunge, claws ripped through leaves. The hunter rolled, spear thrust blindly. Air screamed as it tore past. Eyes met, predator and prey. Death hung in the space between heartbeats. The predator circled, tail swishing, jaws flexing, every movement deliberate. Every step a promise of pain. The hunter struck, spear plunged into thick hide. Flesh tore, blood sprayed. The predator roared, a sound that shook bones. It lunged again, claws slashed across arm. Pain flared, the hunter screamed. Fury met terror. Another strike, the spear embedded deep. The predator staggered, its eyes glinted with anger. With cunning, with survival instinct, sharpened by countless kills, rocks flew. Firelight from distant embers danced across scales. The predator twisted, snapped, snarled. The air vibrated with rage and fear. A final thrust, spear through eye socket. Blood spurted like a fountain. The predator thrashed violently. Muscles tore, bones cracked. Screams and growls merged into the night. Silence fell. Only the hunter's ragged breath filled the void. Blood dripped from hands. Blood soaked the earth. The predator lay still. The hunter collapsed, muscles quivering, adrenaline coursing. Alive, but changed, marked by terror. The forest resumed its whispers. The predator's eyes closed forever. Death left a stain on the ground, and a lesson burned in the hunter's mind. Silence can hide the deadliest threat. The river flowed slow and heavy. water dark with mud and rot. Bones jutted from the banks, some bleached white, some slick with blood. The survivors approached cautiously, feet sinking into silt, hands gripping crude weapons, eyes scanning, searching for movement. The stench hit first: rot, death, and decay. A warning: the river had swallowed life and spit it out. A croak echoed. Something slid beneath the water. Silent fins cutting through dark waves. Hungry, patient, the hunter lifted a spear, knuckles white, muscles taut. Every instinct screamed, "Strike before it strikes you." Bones clicked underfoot, cracked skulls, shattered limbs, remnants of battles long past, of predators and prey, of survival won and lost. The predator surfaced, eyes black, unblinking, jaw wide, rows of teeth like jagged knives, a shadow moving with intent. Spear launched, water erupted, a flash of scales, blood spattered on mud. The predator thrashed violently. It lunged, crushed wood and bone under its weight. The hunter rolled, spear embedded in flank. Water roiled red. The river fought back. Currents twisted, bodies swept, bones rattled like wind chimes. The predator snapped, claws dug into legs, pain exploded. Screams echoed across water. Another hunter joined, spear in hand, eyes cold. They attacked together, surrounding the beast. A final strike, eye pierced. Blood sprayed over the river's edge. The creature writhed, thrashing. Death was certain. Silence fell over the river, only the water moving, only the bones whispering, only the survivors shaking. They dragged the body onto the bank. Blood seeped into mud, life leaving the predator in slow waves. The river reflected the moon, silver over red, a reminder: nature was violent, survival was brutal. Death always waited in shadows. The survivors moved on, but the river of bones left its mark on hands, on eyes, on the heart, a memory etched in blood. The plains stretched endless, grasses bent under wind, sun scorched the earth, shadows crawled across cracked ground. Bones lay scattered, shattered skulls, twisted limbs, evidence of battles long past, a history written in blood. The hunters moved carefully, eyes scanning, spear in hand, every step measured, every breath deliberate. A roar split the air, something massive, something unseen. Ground trembled beneath its weight. The predator emerged, muscles rippled under thick hide, teeth like jagged stone, eyes dark pools of hunger. It charged, grass flattened, dust rose in choking clouds. The hunter ducked, spear plunged into side. The creature screamed, pain and rage collided. It thrashed violently. Claws slashed air. Blood sprayed like rain. Another hunter circled, knife in hand, eyes hard. They attacked together, precision and desperation entwined. The predator lunged again, spear met jaw, bone cracked. The air filled with a wet, tearing sound. A third hunter grabbed its legs, pulling. Dragging it down, the beast roared in fury. Mud and blood mixed underfoot. The fight continued, brutal, relentless. Pain and fear fused. Screams echoed across the plains. The final strike came, spear through skull. Blood geysered, muscles spasmed. Life faded into the dust. Silence fell. The plains held their breath. Only the wind whispered. Bones clattered. Blood seeped into dry earth. The hunters knelt, hands shaking, hearts pounding. Alive, but marked by terror, marked by violence. The scarred plains bore witness. A battlefield of survival. Every predator, every kill. A reminder: the earth is merciless. Only the strongest endure. The survivors moved on, eyes wary, hands ready. The plains stretched before them, endless and deadly. Death waited in every shadow. The story beneath the story would live in them, would pass to their children, would echo across millennia. This was the origin of instinct, the birthplace of courage, the crucible of violence that carved humanity's shape. And as the sun sank behind the ice, they realized every shadow in the past, every horror faced, was a lesson for the future. If this journey into humanity's raw beginnings gripped you, imagine what other secrets history hides beneath the surface. Subscribe now, hit the bell, dive deeper into the brutal, the terrifying, and the astonishing stories that shaped us. Don't just watch history, feel it, survive it, and carry it forward.